paid $67 for a course on how to publish books online. 6 weeks later, I published my first book. 7 months after that, I quit my job. I ended up publishing 68 books that year, and I didn't write any of them. And now, over 8 years later, I've made over $1 million in royalties. This video isn't about bragging or telling you how good I am. You already know that. Instead, I'm going to share a story with you that I've never shared with anyone that will show you how I did it and the 2 key things that held me back for over a decade so you don't have to go through it too. Back in 2012, I wasn't the super cool, clever, handsome man that sits before you. When the Queen jumped out of a helicopter for the London Olympics, and when Felix Baumgartner leapt from 128,000 feet, breaking the skydiving world record, I was jumping to conclusions about why I didn't get that promotion. It's not fair. Haven't got enough experience. How am I supposed to get experience if you won't give me a chance? The truth was, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't ready, and I didn't have hair back then either. Now deep down, I didn't even want the job. I only went for it because it was a more senior position with better pay. Later that year, I'd be turning 30, and life hadn't turned out the way I hoped. I'd only just gotten out of debt, and I had no savings or investments. I'd loved my job and the company I worked for, but I had this nagging feeling that I was capable of more. I still had this desire to do something special with my life, but no direction to channel it. And it was eating away at me. Was I kidding myself? Was I destined for mediocrity? If I didn't find a career path to throw myself into soon, I might have to accept my fate and aimlessly climb the corporate ladder for the next 30 years. Something had to change. Not long after the rejection, I was lucky enough to stumble across an old CD that was gathering dust on my sideboard. It was by Jim Rohn. I can't remember the title, but it was something about becoming successful. I had nothing better to do, so I decided to hear the old man out.
Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Here's the secret, Mr. Rohn. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
His words hit me like the G-force on Felix's freefall. The problem wasn't my circumstances, it was me. I needed to acquire more skills and wisdom. I needed to become better. I needed to take responsibility. Over the next couple of years, I became obsessed with personal development and bettering myself. I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but it didn't matter. My aim was to become the best version of myself and to become undeniable. I started noticing changes in my mindset, which led to changes in my body, finances, and happiness. My circumstances were roughly the same, but I felt the change within myself, and it made all the difference. There was still a question mark over my career path, but I found an answer in the 4-hour work week. I read the entire book in 3 days, which I'd never done before. Tim Ferriss pointed out that it didn't matter what job you had if you were financially independent. You could create a side hustle that provides enough passive income to cover your living expenses, freeing you up to do whatever you want. This was a revelation. Screw the career path. I just had to find a side hustle that would cover my living expenses, and I could do anything. I could travel the world, do bucket list items, or spend time with people I care about. I had no idea how to make money online, but this was the only option in front of me. In my mind, it was very clear. If I didn't find a way to earn passive income, I had to be prepared for 30 years of corporate life and no way of knowing what I could have accomplished. I was done with waiting. It was time to finally back myself. In 2014, I started researching how to make passive income online, and I found Stefan James and his blog Project Life Mastery. In 2013 to 14, Stefan claimed to be earning 5 to 10k a month in royalties, publishing ebooks on Amazon. He said he published over 100 books and hired ghostwriters to write for him, and helped his brother earn up to $6,500 in 4 months. Oh, and guess what? He only had a course for $67, showing you exactly how he does it. Was this guy legit? Or was he just shilling a course to cash in? I wanted to believe him, but it just sounded too good to be true. So I left it and explored other options. Later that year, I checked in on old Stefan just to see how he was doing, and it made me feel sick. Not only was he still making 5 to 10k a month with publishing, but in October he made 76k, beating the 71k he made in September. He'd saved 100k in 5 months and was seemingly smashing every goal he set for himself out of the park. How is this possible? How is he doing it? This was stopping me from finding out. I could pay £38.29 or $67 to potentially earn who knows what. And yet, there was still something holding me back. He's a bit cheesy. I don't relate to him. I hate wasting money. Even $67. Is he just making money from selling courses? I didn't know what to do. At the time, I didn't have any other ideas. But then, I noticed he was offering a 7-day free trial on his course. Now, I had no excuses. So on the 30th of November, after months of sitting on the sideline, I finally signed up to his program. My plan was simple. Book 3 days holiday from work, complete the course in 3 days, and publish 3 books. I had to give it a fair crack. One book might not work out, but if all 3 bombed, then at least I gave it a go and knew this wasn't for me. I set a goal for 2015 to cover my living expenses with passive income. I remember at the time feeling a bit unrealistic, but I was done with speculating. Now was the time to take some action and see what was possible. The course was pretty basic, but it got me up and running. I learned how to find a profitable niche, stand out from the competition, utilize keyword selection and SEO, hire freelancers like ghostwriters, cover designers, and editors, how to construct titles and subtitles, write book descriptions, get reviews, and promote my books. I decided to hire 3 writers to write on 3 topics. Something I was passionate about, something I had experience and knowledge in, and something I thought would sell well. So I decided on positive thinking, running a marathon, and despite not knowing anything about it, growing orchids. Yeah, I know. On the 11th of January 2015, roughly 6 weeks after starting, I published my first book, Pursuing Positivity, a guide to positive thinking and happy living. I was over the moon! I'd published a book and there it was on Amazon. I'd done something that most people want to do in their lifetime, but only a small percentage actually do. I'd done a thing. Now granted, it only cost me 44 quid to create. It was pretty poor. I didn't write any of it. It was only 29 pages long, but it was mine. I asked my family and friends for help, but after initial pity purchases, the sales died off, like, immediately. What was happening? Where are all the royalties? That niggling doubt crept in. Was this it? Had I just wasted all my time and money? Was this just too good to be true? Even to this day, this book has made me £14 and 2p in total in 8 years of sales. I felt flat and disheartened. But it was too late. I was already committed and books 2 and 3 were almost ready. On the 15th of Jan, I released my second book, Your First Marathon. And on the 19th of Jan, I released my third, Your First Orchid. Original titles. For book 2, I went on my gut and moved away from some of the advice from the course. I basically put more money and effort into it. It cost me 162 quid to create, but I was more proud of the end result. And I took a hybrid approach for book 3, which cost me 63 quid. I was more nervous about these two. I spent more money and followed my own gut rather than his recommendations. If they didn't work out, I'd be back to square one again. It wasn't worth thinking about. At the end of Jan, in my first month of publishing, with 3 books on the market, I made £9.50 in royalties. But in my second month, sales started picking up, and I earned £51.47. And these royalties were miles off covering my living expenses, but it gave me hope that there might be something in publishing. If I earned 50 quid in a month with 3 books, then I could see how it was possible to earn 500 quid a month with 30 and £5,000 a month with 300. So I set up my next batch of books in flowers and fitness and expanded into new niches. In my third month, I had a new problem to contend with. A problem you might face if you start a side hustle. I'd now published 10 books and my royalties rose to £101, which was okay, but that would barely cover the cost of creating 1 book, let alone the 300 I needed to make £5 a month. Before publishing, when my wage came in, I put aside money for my living expenses, money for spending, and I invested the rest into dividend stocks. Bigger sales commissions and bonuses would go straight into investing. Simple. But now I had to find money to create books, so I was left with a dilemma. Should I wait for royalties to accumulate and reinvest them? In this case, March's royalties were £101, which would barely cover the cost of 1 book. Or should I break my monthly investing habit, which I knew was working, and use some of that to keep my side hustle going? March's investment allocation was just over £1,000, which would help me create 5 to 10 books. I remember agonising over this at the time, but looking back, the decision's really simple. If I invested £1,000 into dividend stocks yielding 5%, I'd receive £50 a year. But if I used that money for publishing, I could create 5 to 10 books that had the potential to earn thousands of pounds a year. Was it really that difficult? I didn't know how long this was going to take, or if I was going to regret this decision, but the numbers in front of me gave me hope, and I'd find out soon enough. Over the next quarter, I got serious. I was inspired by Brian Tracy's 40+ formula.
Every hour that you invest in your work or yourself over 40 is an investment in your future.
He said you can tell what someone's future will look like based on the amount of time they're putting in above 40 hours.
Now, how many hours does the average self-made millionaire in America work until he passes the $1 million mark? 59.
This was my benchmark. If I could spend at least 3 hours a day publishing, that put me at around 61 hours a week. So I started inhaling coffee and got to work. During the week, I set an alarm for 10 to 5, which gave me 2 solid publishing hours before work. I did 1 to 2 hours in the evening, 3 to 6 hours on Saturdays and Sundays, and even squeezed in the odd cheeky 30 minutes during my lunch hour. Unsurprisingly, my production and blood pressure went to another level. I hired more writers, explored new genres, and continued refining my process. I expanded my ebooks into paperback and audiobook formats. And with 3 revenue streams per book, my royalties continue to grow. In April, my royalties grew to £243, in May, £503, and in June, £752. I was now comfortably hitting my 21-hour weekly goal. Some weeks it was double that. It was intoxicating to see my efforts paying off. In 6 months, I'd published 27 books, and my royalties were in touching distance of covering my living expenses. I might just bloody do it. In just 6 months, I could feel myself changing. As I worked through challenges and got more familiar with the publishing process, my confidence grew. And then one day, everything changed for this little fella. I still remember the moment to this day. Me and Lou were midway through a long drive, and I couldn't stop thinking about publishing and all the possibilities. So I started a whimsical conversation.
Lou, imagine if we were earning 5 to 10k a month through publishing. Like, how would our lives change? What would we be doing?
Lou played along.
We could travel the world. We could help out family and friends. We could buy whatever we wanted. And we could finally relax about money.
And then I did. I felt it physically. I knew I was just pretending, but for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to feel what it was like to earn 10k a month. And I have to be honest, it felt amazing. My shoulders dropped and relaxed. My breathing slowed. All tension was let go as I eased into the driver's seat. For the first time in a very long time, I felt a reassuring sense of calm confidence. I previously thought that visualization was a load of woo-woo nonsense, and I'm not sure what changed for me in this moment. I just went with it. I didn't just believe I was going to hit my goals. It felt inevitable. I was going to earn 5 to 10k a month. And in a way, I already had. Watching my royalties grow each month was exhilarating. I was hooked. All I wanted to do in my spare time was create books. So I did. But I created a new issue. Lou wasn't happy with the lack of time I was putting into the relationship. And she was right. She had been super supportive throughout all of this. And there were days where we would barely speak because I was working. Something had to give. My biggest time commitment was my job. I was working 40 hours a week, and I imagined what I could do if I spent that time publishing. I didn't want to stop publishing. I didn't want to wait. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was time to speak to my boss. I remember feeling nervous. It was like breaking up with a girlfriend. I was so excited about the publishing possibilities, but I was walking away from a job that I loved and from people I cared about. This wasn't going to be easy. I brought her up to speed with what I'd been doing and told her my plans. She was surprised and disappointed, but fully supportive. She was amazing. She asked if there was anything she could do to change my mind. And I said, unless you can offer me 5 to 10k a month, which wasn't realistic, I don't think you can. After speaking to her boss, she asked if I could help her find a replacement. So rather than work a month's notice, I could work 3 days a week in August, 2 days a week in September, and leave in October. This was perfect. I could put extra time into publishing, and I'd still have a wage as I transitioned into self-employment. Once we had finalised the agreement, we told the team. My boss started talking and broke down into tears. She turned to me and said, I can't do it. People in the team started freaking out. What's going on? So I tried, and my voice went. It kept breaking due to the emotion, but I managed to tell them I was leaving. It was horrible. A couple of people started crying, one person left the room, and the rest celebrated. I love this place. People thought I'd never leave the company, and that was my original plan. But now I had something driving me that I'd never experienced before. Looking back, I can see that leaving at this point was reckless, and I wouldn't recommend it. My business wasn't even covering my living expenses. But there are 4 reasons why I made the jump early. Number 1, safety net. My boss and the company MD both told me I was welcome back anytime. This gave me a safety net. Number 2, savings. I didn't want to use it, but I had a good chunk of money in the stock market that I could draw upon if needed. I wasn't going to go hungry. Number 3, time. I was convinced that with a 2-month runway and an additional 40 hours a week, I would eventually cover my living expenses with publishing. And I had something else that not a lot of people have. Number 4, conviction. After I told the team I was leaving, a colleague came up to me and asked if I was scared about the business not working out. I said I was concerned, but I wasn't scared. It wasn't my plan, but I was prepared to work 16-hour days if needed to create enough income and not spend any money on things I didn't need, like holidays, clothes, or fun stuff. If I couldn't make it work by putting in 100-hour work weeks and spending no money, then I could always go back to employment, and at least I gave it a go. Not everyone can say that and mean it, but I did. After handing in my notice in July, I earned £982 in royalties, followed by 1,043 in August and 972 in September. I did it! I was finally covering my living expenses with publishing, and I'd hit my 2015 goal. I was buzzing, but I wasn't done. I hired a coach. I created a limited company. I started coaching people on how to publish books, and I joined a publishing mastermind of high performers. In October, I'll be on my own. I was excited, but I was also nervous. For my final day at work, I dressed up as He-Man. Long story, it was a very special day for me, filled with lots of emotion. It will go down as one of the best days of my life. As I left the office for the final time, I was free. And deep down I knew that I'd probably never work for anyone else again. My royalties for my first full-time month were £1,322, followed by just under £2,000 in November, more than my previous wage. And all the months of hard work, sacrifice and frustrations came together in the peak selling season of December. My goal at the start of the year, which felt unrealistic at the time, was to earn over £800 a month or $1,000 in passive income. In December, with 68 books published, my royalties for the month were £5,299. I couldn't believe it. I'd done it. I'd never earned so much money. This month alone would cover my living expenses for 6 months. I knew I had a long way to go to create sustainable income over the long term, but I couldn't help but feel excited about where I was heading. And for good reason. From January 2015 to the end of December 2022, I received £866,000 or just over $1 million in royalties. This side hustle, which I learned for $67, has turned into a lucrative part-time business. It's the best investment I've ever made. I've learned so much during this time, but there are 2 key takeaways that really made the difference, and they're not limited to publishing. Number 1, utilize leverage. You're never going to get rich exchanging your time for money because you'll always be limited by the number of hours you can work. Earn with your mind, not your time. Wealth becomes limitless when you utilize leverage. Here's how. Number 1, labor. Pay people to work for you and leverage their time. Rather than writing, editing, proofreading, designing covers and promoting, I've got professionals to do all that for me. Number 2, money. Use other people's money to grow faster. Now, I didn't use other people's money. I used my own that I'd earmarked for investing. So rather than waiting for my royalties to build up, I used that money to create more books, which expanded my income much faster. Number 3, digital content. Buy back your time by creating digital products that make money while you sleep. Digital content has little to no cost of replication, meaning if I sell 1 book or 1 million, it still costs me the same amount of time and money to create. If you exchange your time for a wage, then there's always going to be a ceiling to what you can earn, because you can never work more than 24 hours in a day, and that's not recommended. Instead, if you exchange your time to build assets, you earn money without working, which frees you up to build more. So as I'm creating this video for my YouTube business, I'm still selling books and earning royalties in my publishing business. As you're watching this video, thank you very much, by the way. I'm earning ad revenue without having to work, freeing me up to create more books, more videos, or create value elsewhere. You can combine all forms of leverage to expand your wealth exponentially. I hope it's clear, but this video isn't really about publishing. You can back yourself and utilize leverage in content creation, print on demand, drop shipping, service-based businesses, or information-based businesses, just to name a few. The vehicle matters less than your desire and perception to act on it. Don't overthink it. There's no perfect time. Just get started. Number 2, back yourself. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. There's a truth within all of us that's waiting to be discovered. You deserve the very best life has to offer. Trust me, playing small doesn't serve you. I did that. You are far more capable than you give yourself credit for. Dare to dream and go out and get it. There's no extra cost to thinking big, but the price of not backing yourself is huge. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to be difficult. You're going to feel uncomfortable, and it's going to be worth it. The sooner you put yourself out there, the sooner you'll get the feedback you need to grow. Don't wait around like I did. Dream big and back yourself. I'm starting over and using leverage to create a media business centered around content creation and online education. I'm backing myself and dreaming big by attempting to help 1 million subscribers become financially independent. Join the crew. What about you? Could you benefit from backing yourself or using leverage? If you want to start a side hustle that works around your current lifestyle, then check out this video here, where I share 4 exercises to help you find business ideas that are designed perfectly for you. I'll see you over there. Oh, and before you go, you might need a tissue.